Right. We are here to talk about this new era of growth at a time where consumers are becoming increasingly complex and their needs and wants almost constantly evolving. Key considerations include how our businesses going to stay ahead of the game and capitalize on technological trends. And I think top of mind includes artificial intelligence. So very pleased today to be joined by Hans, Tony, and Eric, who will give us unique perspective to technology, fintech, and aviation as well. For starters, I'd just like quickly your thoughts, gentlemen, when it comes to the one factor or technological trend that you see kind of shaping the landscape, what would it be?
Anyone? I think artificial intelligence, of course, is the technology what everyone talks about. But I don't like to go into AI too deeply because it's discussed in so many forums. For me, it's more of the foundation that is underneath that allows AI to flourish.
Okay.
So we'll talk about it.
And Tony?
Well, for us, really, what's really exciting is the adoption of technology by our consumers, and in many ways, in Southeast Asia, we can leapfrog many of the technology because we've been a little bit behind. So the adoption of technology, the uses of technology from our consumer side has been very exciting for us.
Eric?
I think in aerospace, there's clearly multiple fronts, but I think one of them is product development. Product developing a new airplane, designing a new airplane takes years and years of research and development. And we believe right now at Bombardier that AI will speed up that process. So being first to market will be a competitive advantage, and that's one of the areas we're working with AI for.
Okay, so it sounds a lot of this focus is on AI. Maybe let's start with you, Hans, because you are on this panel the expert when it comes to tech. How should businesses be thinking about artificial intelligence adoption?
Maybe before we go there, it's all about how do you capture innovation, how do you bring value back to the end clients. And I love to work with clients to solve their issues. But we have to recognize, the way I look at it coming into Asia, that all of our clients have 5 fundamental challenges. And it would be interesting to see if this resonates here with the panel. First, data has been exploding and it will continue to explode. Very few companies have actually took a lot of value from it. So data is exploding. Second, everyone now has heterogeneous environments from an infrastructure perspective. Their data, their compute sits everywhere. Thirdly, the challenge, lack of automation. So if you haven't automated well, it's draining resources and cost at a level that is unprecedented. 4, skills. Real challenge for many of the enterprises across the globe that we're helping them with. And 5th, if you have these challenges and you combine them, you're looking at huge security issues. So how do you manage all of this in such a way that you minimize your security exposure?
Is that what you're seeing as well, Tony?
Yeah, in some ways. So for us, there are 3 blocks. When we started AirAsia, we were the first guys to use the internet to sell tickets. Everyone had used the travel agents. And that enabled us to grow much quicker. We were the first to adopt cloud computing as an airline who had generally been used to mainframes, and that enabled us to scale up. So again, with AI, here we're not so sure we're going to be the first. There's a lot of hype, there's a lot of stuff up there. And so really, in our first instance, AI is really a graduate of good data management. So we're still really focused on our data. Yeah. And then we're slowly making baby steps in AI. So where do we see AI making a difference? Firstly, for our airline, is in 3 areas. Enterprise first. We think there's a huge advantage in the backroom space in terms of simplifying accounts, even down to the legal processes. And that's where we're putting most of our effort at the moment in using AI to remove cost and increase processing. The second area is operations, in terms of, running an airline is complicated, different planes burn different levels of fuel. You know, the longer you fly, the less fuel you burn. So generally, you'd put the most fuel-efficient aircraft on the shortest routes, because that's when you're flying to Singapore from KL.
Would you be able to quantify, qualify perhaps what you're seeing in terms of the AI impact on, say, on-time performance, or how it's been, you know, harnessing market share?
Not yet, but that's the plan. I mean, so on operations side, we're looking at things like how can we improve on-time performance, because we can predict weather better. And we're using a lot in terms of predictive maintenance. That's where that really helps. So we know when a part will fail before it fails, and so we remove it. But so first lot is enterprise operations, whether it's burning less fuel, whether it's on-time performance. And the third one, which is the most complicated, is how do we use AI in terms of the consumer? How do we help the consumer make better decisions, help them remove these obstacles in buying flight tickets or buying hotels, etc. So it's exciting, but you know, sometimes while I was the first adopter in the internet and the cloud, I'm a little bit concerned that there might be a lot of hype first, and we're just really taking some baby steps, but we do see the potential.
Which is a good point, because I think Hans also believes that we're now moving past AI hype, and it's really about how businesses are building out the right policy and architecture. But before we get to that, Eric, I think your business also uses AI for predictive maintenance. I mean, how are you seeing it shaping what's being delivered in terms of business jets?
Yeah. I think in aerospace, there's some complexity for us. As an example, we have Bombardier, 5,300 airplane flying out there, and there is about 30 to 35 different models. Every single airplane has around, you know, between 50 and 100,000 different parts. So every day, we can be asked in the middle of Africa, in Asia, in anywhere in the world, for a particular parts. So what we've done in the last couple of years is forecasting the demand of every single one of these parts. Was a very challenging exercise to do it manually, basically with Excel spreadsheet and all the whole thing, and an army of people. So we've put AI into this right now, and we're achieving benchmark results today. Today, 93% of all these hundreds of thousands, if not millions of parts that can be called at any time, we are able 93% of the time to have the parts to the customer within 24 hours. So, which is a benchmark in the industry. So in terms of improving customer experience, the other piece also in improving customer experience is health monitoring of our airplane. So our airplane are connected, and we're capable of having information during flight, as an example. So if an airplane has one issue during flight, you know, we can, when the airplane lands somewhere, to have a technician with the parts in his hands, you know, basically ready to get the airplane back in the air as soon as possible. So we've leveraged AI in multiple forms right now to improve customer experience. Like demand of parts is one of them, and having the parts in the right location anywhere in the world, but also monitoring the health of the airplane and being able, as Tony mentioned, to have predictive maintenance instead of bringing the airplane, so we can do things much more proactively.
I'm sure as a Canadian company, he's using AI to tell him how to deal with Donald Trump in this new world.
Among other things, potentially. But Eric, when it comes to AI and the kind of efficiencies that are garnered from it, when you look at aerospace as an industry, it's also highly regulated. So how do you even go about integrating AI into that?
Yeah, this is going to be probably one of the biggest challenge for us. Our industry, I was talking about product development. It takes years to develop technology. And it's not just about designing an airplane, and also getting up in the air. It's about certification of the airplane. We need to work with the different authorities, whichever, if it's the FAA in the US or EASA or different other people. And I think if you look at the history over the last 20 years, the business has complexified. We have a lot more software. The airplane we're delivering 20 years ago had, I don't know, maybe 300,000 line of software. Today, our Global 7500, which is the flagship of the industry, has almost 100 million line of code. So the certification has become much more complex. AI can help us, as an example, to speed up all the testing and the requirement to get to a final certification. Because everything on an airplane, for obvious reason, needs to be certified in all kind of environment and tested deeply, which is what had a lot of time to a development program. So as I said at the beginning, sorry, I think my microphone was not working, but I think we're going to be able with AI, and we're testing to test it to accelerate significantly the development and the testing at the end with much more speed and much more capability and prognostic that we ever did before. So this will accelerate time to market of delivering a new airplane, and that's going to be a competitive advantage. But I think in the world of certification, we need to work with the authorities because they will be uncontrollable. That's what happened in 2008 to 2012 when we all showed up, Airbus, Boeing, Bombardier, Embraer, all the big OEM. We showed up at the authorities, and it was the first time they were seeing so much software. And it puts a lot of pressure on them and a lot of pressure on us. This is why there was a lot of program being late at the time. But I think right now we learned from that, and we're trying to be proactive and work with the authorities about what we're going to come up with in 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years down the road.
How does it help mitigate supply chain uncertainty as tariffs loom? And I think this is kind of what Tony was alluding to as well.
You want me to go? So if I'm looking at supply chain today, it's an industry challenge we have in terms of getting the parts at the right place at the right time. And we're using AI in manufacturing right now with digital twins. So we can simulate and rebuilding the airplane in a different sequence than the normal sequence because we don't have the right part. So what's the optimal sequence to build the airplane and still deliver it on time to your customer? So digital twins is something that we're starting to leverage. It's still at the early stage, but something that looks very promising for us in an environment right now where the supply chain is very unpredictable.
Hans, talk to us about what the right policy, what the right architecture looks like, and the kind of guardrails we should be paying attention to.
I think, first of all, AI, it's all about data. And data sits everywhere, as I said in the challenge. I think, and we believe as a company, your data should remain your data. The AI models you create should be your models, and you should create your own. So AirAsia should have their own, Bombardier should have their own. Because when you look at it today, and you look at some of the closed models that are out there, the big ones, you ask a question, you get a response. But what happens within the model is unknown to you. If you're an enterprise, that's a real problem. Because if you're running, let's call it blast furnaces, you cannot be 99% sure. You need to be 100% sure. If you're flying airplanes, you cannot be 99% sure. You need to be 100% sure. So we help companies, governments, to create their own models on their data, with their data. And then we apply governance frameworks to manage the output that comes. And that governance structure should be aligned to the cultural values, should be aligned to language bias that sits within those enterprises. And we help enterprises with enterprise AI in this way to serve their end clients a lot better. So it's not the commercialized versions that many of us use. It's really how do you implement and govern enterprise AI in a correct way.
And it's also about this data sovereignty and transparency.
Correct.
How do businesses think about what goes on private or in the public side of things? How do they determine? What are the criteria they should be paying attention to?
I mean, first of all, 80 to 85% of the enterprise data and enterprise applications still sits within the control of those enterprises. 6 to 10 years ago, everyone was moving to cloud, but that connection moving to cloud had no end state. I think many enterprises, many CEOs, many CIOs now are rethinking how do I protect and keep my data instead of just quote unquote being on a journey to cloud. And that philosophy and thinking, I think, is very important in the strategy for the next 5 to 10 years.
Tony, your business has a lot of data from over the years that's been collated. So how are you thinking about navigating all this?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was kind of trying to say at the beginning. AI is only as good as the data you you put into it first. And for us, that there is, as I said, a huge amount of data, customer data, operational data, and then enterprise data. So we're cleaning that up. That's a long process to make sure that the plumbing is right first. And it's data from, if you look at it from a negative point, which is also positive, millions of complaint letters, which can be used to teach the chatbot to answer much better. And so that's what we're really focused on, and that's why I say we're not jumping in so quickly into AI, because good data in really mean better AI. So we're really focused on cleaning out that data, and as I said, we're making baby steps, but we do see the huge potential. And what we're seeing is, it's not just the first guy who comes up with. The newer models that come up a bit later give much better solutions. And so our job, get the data right. Secondly is also to teach our people, because AI is such a buzzword, teach our people what AI can really do and what we're looking for it, and really focus, because everyone suddenly in the company, we have 26,000 staff, everyone wants to start getting into AI, and then you get a real pig's breakfast. So we're really trying to do less than more and fix on the big things. So if I take operations, my number one priority is fuel. How can we save fuel? Because if we can save 3-4%, you're saving hundreds of millions. Second is how we price. We would know that you are paid a lot in Bloomberg versus IBM, and so we would charge you a little bit more than my Dutch colleague here. That kind of information really can't be done by humans. So we really do see huge benefits for our industry. But as I said, first of all, sort our own data. Second is make sure our people are focused on what the right things are, and then pick the right partners to work with.
Eric, maybe you'd like to weigh in on that. I see you kind of nodding away. When it comes to the customer-facing segments, how are they viewing, the use of their data amid all this?
That's a very important one. So today, we're using AI actually with our customer data. So we're working with a firm to help our sales team, our sales and maintenance to find who are the prospect, to buy an airplane, as an example. So data is super important here in a sense that data protection, and I was trying to find, as the guy were providing their answer, about something that is not confidential for us. And actually, whatever if it's data about our employee, data about, and we're a business of IP, basically, of intellectual property, plus the data for our customer. So with our customer, we have, algorithm, made of AI that are always following what's going on to be able to provide information in real time to our people, to our sales force, as an example. And help them, guiding who they should be talking to and approach, who could be a candidate to buy an airplane or to become a customer. So I think whatever fits in the customer field or even for employee data, but it's the data sources is the base and the foundation if you want to have an effective data. And we've been thinking about this, and to your point, it's been evolving. We go to cloud, we don't go to cloud. But there's also the geopolitical aspect right now, which is becoming more and more significant these days. It's a question about where do you store your data, is becoming another question that we need to think about.
Hans, when you talk about the data sovereignty earlier and the kind of transparency that we're seeing, equally, how should a business like aerospace be kind of shaping this?
Our philosophy, and it's maybe a bit counterintuitive, it's do you have flexibility? And I'll talk about that. Are you following an open ecosystem type of approach? And how resilient are you as an enterprise? So if I say flexible first, how flexible are you as a company, as an enterprise, to move your applications, move your data from one location to the next? That's not a simple answer for many enterprises because of this journey to cloud. How flexible are you to move? Are you in control of your underlying infrastructure? Flexibility in this world is absolutely key. Second one is openness. you can't innovate fast enough as an enterprise without fully leveraging the ecosystem. And in AI, this cannot be more true. So the future of AI, in our point of view, is a layering of different models for a specific use case. The models will be small, could be aerospace, could be finance, very small models that are used for specific use cases on the right data set with the right governance. So be open, work with different models, you're in different languages, you're with different specialties. And then third one is the resiliency. And the resiliency goes way beyond security. For us, it's, are you able to pick up your digital home and move it to a different location? That, in the end, is the question that we as enterprises have to be able to answer. And how fast can you do that, given everything that's happening geopolitically, but also in the technology?
You alluded to some of this retention of the company's culture. So equally, I would ask Tony and Eric, when you're looking at these AI systems, what are the criteria you're looking at, before the implementation, before you go to some of these vendors? What do you want to see from them? Tony?
I think the most important thing is, I still think the most important thing is, what do we want? We've got to brief them properly. And what we want to know is, we've been promised a lot of things.
Right.
And delivery at the moment is very poor.
Right.
So everyone says, I can do this. And we're talking about some pretty big companies. No one has delivered anything on time, and no one has delivered what we've wanted. So that's why I'm saying we're kind of pulling back a little bit to see how the industry develops. Obviously, there's big success at high levels on drug discoveries and all this other kind of stuff. But certainly at our industry, and we're not just an airline. We have a cargo division, we have a cargo airline, we have an OTA, and we have a fintech business. We're seeing a lot of great promises, but the delivery has not been as expected. And so that's why I'm throwing a little bit of caution to say the hype may be greater than the reality in our kind of industry. Can I also just say one thing, because people is still the most important thing. Correct. AI can't, for us, we went through 5 years of COVID, which was really difficult. 24,000 staff, 250 planes that couldn't go anywhere. AI couldn't solve that. It was really the human spirit and resilience to kind of go and create all these other businesses that kept us alive. We had cabin crew delivering food. We did a food delivery app. We went and created a fintech business. We retrained our pilots to be data scientists. And so what I still emphasize is that AI will be a good complement, but the human mind and the human spirit still is the most important thing. And you touched on it. The culture of the organization is really important, and how that culture of the organization is able to pivot into using AI as a supplemental tool in their decision making, I think is really important. So you create an environment that we're not afraid of AI, that will use it, but we still retain that the most important element of what kept AirAsia and our other companies alive was the human spirit and resilience.
There are still some gaps that maybe AI just can't fill. And he was talking about how maybe it's a bit of a over-promising, under-delivering situation. Is that something?
This is very key for us. As we transition to more AI, as an example in product development, we're a business where we have a lot of knowledge, that is in people's mind today. I have doctors in every single field of engineering pretty much that are specialists in e-transfer, into software programming, into different areas. Is how do we transfer and accelerate our program development to more AI, but still preserve the organizational knowledge and capability? I still need to have people that understand what's in the black box at some point, so that we can continue to improve it and work together. So you don't want to lose that knowledge and have it into a box somewhere only. So it's a bit of a fine line, something that I would admit we're still struggling with and still thinking of, how this is going to evolve. But, we're going from an organization that is deeply based on people's individual knowledge, very detailed software engineering capability, to thrusting, AI and giving more capability to accelerate development. But you still need to find the right balance so that you still preserve that.
The one thing also I'm hearing from all three of you, it's also about the people and it's also about the talent. What are you seeing in terms of, the kind of gaps, and how are you anticipating that to evolve as it's increasingly being incorporated into your organizations, Eric?
Yeah, I think we're going from a different generation, that is joining our organization, that needs to be more comfortable to, I will call it, delegate the work to a computer and to an AI machine. And I think we need to have our engineers more and more being comfortable to do not 100% of the work themselves like they used to, but be able, and I'll use the word delegate, some of the work, still understanding what the machine is doing is going to be the new pattern and the new type of engineer we're going to be looking for.
Tony, delegation?
Yeah, I mean, talent is there. And as each industrial revolution, people move into those fields. So a lot of young people are going into AI and data science, etc. And the cognitive thinking is different from my generation, for sure. So I'm not worried about talent. And I think we're just providing the infrastructure to be able for people to train and learn, but I don't see that as an issue going forward. And as Eric said, it's a mixture. We do need to have our own internal talent, for sure, and I'm discovering that more and more as we use outside consultants, that we need to control some of the processes internally. But it's also sharing some of the work with third party.
At the same time, though, in the short term, as Malaysia tries to kind of move up the tech value chain, there's a lot of competition for talent. So is that not in some way going to shape what you're able to kind of extract?
I mean, look, Malaysia is one of those countries where English is well spoken and has a pretty good education, so we're always losing people. A lot to your country mostly. Half of Singapore is Malaysians, and the best Singaporeans are Malaysians. So, see, they all know that. They all know that table. So look, we grew an airline from 2 planes. I started with 2 planes. We grew it to 300 planes. Talent, to me, is never an issue if you put your mind to it and you put the resources there. And you will lose talent, and you'll replace talent, and some talent will come back. It's providing the environment that people enjoy working, providing people the ability to grow. We've taken people who carried bags for us and made them captains. We were the first airline to have female pilots, and now as an airline we have the largest. I mean, here's a great talent, right? Why exclude 50% of the population? When I came into AirAsia, I said, why are there no female pilots? And the chief pilot said the most ridiculous thing that can never be said in public. And now, we have the largest percentage of any. So that 50% of the population was cut out. We were the first airline in Southeast Asia to have female pilots. So I'm never worried about talent. There's enough people in our part of the world. There are enough smart people in this part of the world. We just have to motivate them and give them the platform to be motivated and develop. And that's what we've been good at. For 23 years, we haven't had one day of industrial action. There are no unions in AirAsia. And so I'm not worried about talent. And I think at the pace it's rolling out and people learning, we will always have talent there. It's giving them the right platform and the ability to really grow, and trusting some of these young people to have a bash.
Right, the belief that the culture is really at the heart of it all. Hans, at the same time, we know how IBM is doing a lot to build out that talent. What are you seeing in terms of partnerships and the potential gaps?
So, in the end, I cannot agree with Tony more, right? The evolving need for differentiated talent and the way they integrate and work together, I don't see as much as an issue. I think the technology and the research on how we're evolving as a company, as a tech company, is really interested. We're bringing in PhDs, we're bringing in a lot of master's students all across the world, and they work on these emerging technologies for our clients. Our consulting teams are very, very strong, and they help our clients move from A to B. What is so important in this new industrial age of artificial intelligence for us is that companies are able to integrate horizontally. And that has never been really possible. Many of our companies, governments, they're organized vertically. This technology will enable us to integrate horizontally. Even further than that, it will focus on the individual. So on the individual client, in the individual medicine. Medicine was mentioned. Take penicillin. It's a beautiful medicine, but it's really a buckshot at the problem. We haven't really individualized medicine yet. We haven't really individualized our way we go after the client in an airline. AI will completely change that. And together with our consulting teams, as I said, and together with research, we are actually helping clients do that, which is a whole new chapter for any enterprise, any government in the next decade.
Tony and Eric sort of tempered expectations earlier in terms of delivery for or from systems.
Yes. I mean, back to my 5 challenges, right? Data sits everywhere and is exploding. You're not managing one environment, you're managing multiple. Lack of automation, lack of skills, security issues. If you don't start with that foundation, whatever promise you have, or whatever is being promised to you is very hard to deliver on if you don't take these fundamentals into account first. So, as I said when I opened, I don't like to talk on AI as much, because we have to start with the foundations first before we can apply correct AI and deliver on the use cases and deliver on the value that we promise to our clients. Many vendors don't start there. So look at the foundations first before you promise and basically go there.
Tony, you started off saying that it's not just about AI, it's technological adoption in general. How do you see that evolving?
Well, I mean, you just have to go to China, and there's no cash. I mean, that you go to the Western world, and cash is still really important. And so technology in Asia, I think, is leapfrogging on the consumer side. If you look at the growth of e-commerce, if you now look at, very few people are checking in on desks. Everyone's using their mobile app to check in, and their boarding passes are there. So that is a big plus for us, that when we bring in something new, when I started AirAsia 23 years ago, I came up with a tagline, "Now everyone can fly," because that was our aspiration. I saw only 6% of Malaysians flew, and I thought, wow, this is a great business. 94% of people are my potential market. I forgot all the politics and all the other things that come with aviation. But we had to teach people how to check in. Many people missed their flights originally because they used to go on a bus and a train and you didn't have to check in. I never wondered whether they thought the plane was going to come through the departure lounge and just pick them up. But now, we don't have to teach very much when we come up with a new technology. People are very aware and savvy. And if you see the power of Asian apps, like WeChat or KakaoTalk, the sophistication is far greater than the West. So that is an exciting part, that we're very brave to look at. We're working with Google on something we think is very cool that will change the way you purchase travel, and break down a lot of invisible barriers. And so that's great. If you look at, we hate immigration officers. You always say, welcome to my wonderful country, and the first person you see is the most unfriendly immigration officer who makes your life hell. In Malaysia now, you can leave the country with a barcode. And we push that. We've pushed really hard to get rid of visas. Why do you need a visa? You've got everyone's data anyway, even before they board the plane. And so these are the exciting things. If you go into most airports in Southeast Asia now, there are very few immigration officers. In Singapore, there are none, I think. And so the adoption of technology is going to be far greater in Asia. And I think that enables companies like us to grow much quicker, reduce costs, take away friction. But we've got to be careful because a lot of people are promising you masses and the cost. I mean, DeepSeek is a great example, right? We're all saying it's billions, 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 and then this model comes out at a much cheaper price. So my constant question to my management is, don't overpay, don't jump in too quickly. Let's really focus on the key things and make sure we're doing it carefully. But to Hans's point, you can have the best AI company in the world, but if you don't give them the right briefing and the right data, you're going nowhere.
It's so interesting, the technological evolution that you've witnessed as such a huge part of making travel democratized. But Eric, maybe we can bring you into this. In terms of tech innovation, what gets you most excited apart from all the AI that we've been talking about?
He's going to do low-cost private jets.
No, but clearly, like as an example for Bombardier, we have a division called Bombardier Defense. And I think that clearly, there's a speed up right now of adapting new technology and developing new equipment faster. With all the geopolitical tension, we mentioned that earlier, that exists. Some people wants to have more autonomy. So our ability to develop solution and go faster to market is clearly something that will be a key advantage. So, we're thinking of different things we do and leveraging AI to do that. So I think clearly for us, that's going to be another path that we're going to be considering.
And just some final thoughts before we wrap this panel up. If we were to identify the main challenge to implementing all of this, what do you think that would be, Hans?
For me, it's just think through the foundations of the technology that you're implementing. Leverage your data to the maximum, and your data in all times, especially in this world, should remain to be your data. Everything that comes next, I think, is beauty, but you have to protect and govern your own data sets.
Tony?
Main challenge is control, not getting so excited by the hype and throwing a lot at it and getting disappointed. So just being controlled, watching, being careful, knowing that you need to be in this space, but making sure you choose the right time and the right projects to go. So my advice is small steps, less projects, and then before you get too carried away with this buzzword.
Any transformation I have been involved in, the biggest challenge is always the people side of it. I think we always can take care of the technical side, but I think it's all about, people's job will change and it will be different from what they are today in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road. I was giving the example of our engineers a bit earlier. So I think that people that will be capable of managing it will probably transition faster.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Please make your way to the Four Seasons Hong Kong foyer for a networking break before the lunch program.